The Price is Right was going to have its regularly scheduled episode. Next, a university student won $10,000 after accidentally dropping a Plinko chip. She proceeded to do it twice more. Everything turned black just as she was about to discard her fourth chip. Upon spotting, swung the chip in the air and shouted, "The game is fixed." The spectators went silent in disbelief. No one spoke for 15 minutes. The popular game show in the United States was almost ruined by this hidden tragedy, and CBS fought tooth and nail to keep it hidden. In New York City's WRCA-TV was where Bob Stewart was employed in 1956. While having lunch one day, he happened upon a curbside sale on 50th Street. He had a thought when he saw people bidding. Can you imagine a game show where participants had to guess the prices? He referred to the concept as the auctioneer. Television and radio were Stewart's previous domains. He was an NBC and WNEW veteran. He then encountered Monty Hall, who would go on to become a famous host not long after. Upon meeting Stewart, Paul introduced him to Goodson Tom and Productions and inquired, "Do you have any suggestions?" Thanks to that meeting, The Price is Right was born. The inaugural program, hosted by Bill Cullen, aired on NBC on November 26, 1956. It was a total bust for the pilot. A stagehand failed to catch a cue, causing Cullen to crash into a wall during filming. As was typical in the 1950s, NBC purchased the show prior to seeing the pilot. The network attempted to cancel it after the accident and even provided financial incentives to Stewart and Bill Tallman, but they declined. They were so committed to the project that they made NBC maintain their contract. It was the right choice. American game shows were facing difficulties in the late 1950s. When one dodo contender discovered a notebook containing answers intended for another player in 1958, it led to a cheating controversy. An investigation was initiated at that very moment. Several quiz programs had been rigged, and it became apparent very quickly. The most well-known example is the 21-year-old Charles Van Doren, who was instructed and given the answers beforehand. Big money quiz programs were mostly non-existent by 1960. Cleanups on networks were mandated by new legislation and congressional hearings. The Price is Right, however, failed to fall in with the others. On November 26, 1956, it premiered on NBC. The layout was uncomplicated. Athletes failed to go overboard when guessing the pricing of commonplace goods. Cheating was not an option. Hosted by Bill Cullen. Partardo Dawn. Made public. Spectators were adoring it. There was a primetime version by the fall of 1957, thanks to its rapid growth. The first game show to air in color was also this one. More people started trusting The Price is Right even while other shows were yanked from the air. Many perceived it as sincere. At a period when viewers felt duped, that just added to its popularity. The show was taken up by NBC in 1963 after viewership plummeted. ABC intervened without delay. As of the 9th of September, 1963, the program transferred to their network. A few adjustments were done. In place of Don Partardo, Johnny Gilbert took over. Although the premise remained the same, the show welcomed celebrity guests who performed for an undetermined audience. Put a price on it. Stay on track. Lever Brothers, presently known as Unilever, was the primary sponsor in the background. Imperial Margarine, Whisk Detergent, and Handy Andy Cleaner were some of the products that were promoted on the show. They had a standout Dove Beauty bar. As part of the competition, participants were each offered, no matter what, they still get Dove bars every week. That was astute marketing. Dove became a prominent worldwide brand. Although pricing remained unchanged or increased in 2022, the business lowered the bar size from 100G to 90G. The show's original run ended, despite attempts to keep it new. September 3, 1965 was the date. It was 1964 when the primetime version was already canceled. An additional year was devoted to the afternoon version. The fact that viewers become quite proficient at estimating costs was an odd issue. Those interested could respond by mail to the questions posed in the home viewer display. There was a 32-way perfect tie in one prize package by 1959. Producers resolved the matter via phone and telegram after sorting through sacks of letters. It was becoming unmanageable. The Price is Right returned to television on September 4, 1972, after a 7-year hiatus. Everything about it felt and looked different this time. The show is now known as The New Price is Right on CBS. They scrapped the previous quiz system and replaced it with something new. Guessing the prices of commonplace things became the new emphasis. The concept was straightforward. All bids were in full dollars, and no one could exceed that amount. At first, there were only 3 price games in the 30-minute presentation. However, it was sufficient. A lot of people started using it right away. In June of 1973, in the title, the term "new" was omitted. The program finally acquired its own tone. There was an authentic quality to it. It was just anyone could play the game. Neither intelligence nor speed were prerequisites. It was sufficient for you to be aware of prices. And that's the secret of its success. The Price is Right had an air of sincerity. When the 1950s game show cheating scandals were fresh in people's minds. We also got something really memorable from the show. In 1972, something was yelled by broadcaster Johnny Olson. That put a stop to it all. He just responded, "Come on down." And that one word entered the American lexicon. As soon as he said it, the whole room went wild. Fleeing toward the stage, the audience yelled, applauded, hugged strangers, and sprang from their seats. Playing field. Someone yelled. Anarchy reigned. I was enthralled. The practice of reactions at home became more common as time went on. While others danced or sobbed, a few even did cartwheels. The program even featured vintage images depicting someone being hoisted to the front or tumbling in astonishment. In the beginning, there were just those 3 words. Another significant shift followed. December 1, 1975 saw the show's length doubling. The relocation may have begun as early as the 3rd of November, but in any case, this was significant. CBS made a 1-hour show out of the prices. As a result, they were able to play 6 price games rather than 3. This freed them up to try something different, the Showcase Showdown. During that time, the large wheel was unveiled. It was a 20-segment wheel. It increased in increments of 5 cents all the way up to $1. Players swung the wheel in an effort to come close to $1 without really spending it. A bonus was awarded if the number came out to be precisely $1. That bonus was $1,000 from 1975 to 1978. Updating the prize and adding more bonus spins were later additions. A tension-building mechanism was built inside the wheel. The portions were precisely weighed and measured. The dollar appeared to be perpetually within. Easily accessible, but not always so. It changed the course of those moments forever. It was all held together by Bob Barker. October 4, 1972, was the date of his debut as host. From June 15, 2007, he remained. All 6,586 episodes have been counted. Truth or Consequences was his other show at initially, but he eventually let The Price is Right take over his life. After executive producer Frank Wayne passed away in March of 1988, Barker took on even more responsibilities. His new role is that of executive producer. He was involved in game design and even made the $1,000 spectacular, a particular edition of the program that was broadcast during prime time. Something else brought Barker fame as well. He always ended each program with the same message. He pointed out, "Help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered." Then constituted a lasting legacy of the program. Every single day, those remarks were heard by millions of viewers. The CBS network gambled when Barker stepped down in 2007. Comedian Drew Carey was chosen to replace them as host. In October 2007, the pilot episode of Car was shown. Devoted followers were uncertain at first. Classy and serene, Barker had been. As time went on, Carey became more laid-back and informal, but he eventually found his groove. More than 3,269 programs have been hosted by him thus far. He maintained the central theme of the show. While he did value the past, he added a touch of his own comedy and style. During an interview with People magazine, Carey stated, "No matter how my day is, as soon as I get to the Price is Right and walk through the door, it all goes away. It's just vibing all day." On July 22, 2008, an extraordinary event occurred on. The cost is appropriate. Someone from the student body volunteered to play Plinko. After losing her initial chip, she fell into the $10,000 spot. The audience went wild. This was also accomplished by her second chip. Next, her third dash won $10,000 as well. That was an unprecedented occurrence. A string of 3 flawless drops. A total of $30,000 had been hers. People in the crowd started to stand up. Screams could be heard. Mysticism enveloped me. However, the entire atmosphere shifted as she prepared to discard her fourth chip. Onto the stage sprinted a floor director. Then he pounced, knocking the chip to the ground. No one moved. With a whisper, he told Drew Carey, "The game is fixed." The competitor was thereafter removed from the Plinko pedestal and instructed to sit at the stage's base. Drew quietly strolled away. The sheer panel left behind. The lights in the studio went out. The announcer attempted to reassure the audience, but he freely said that he was confused about the situation. Silence filled the room for around 15 minutes. The sudden end to play during a pivotal point in history baffled everyone. Unexpectedly bizarre was the truth. The show took a 2-week hiatus prior to the taping. The studio was utilized by the marketing team to record advertisements for the video game Price Right during that break. They set up the Plinko board so it would appear exciting in the commercial. Their previous approach was slender fishing lines spread out across the $10,000 slot. The chips were always led to the center by these lines. It was an ordinary advertising gimmick, but when the actual show's filming resumed, nobody cut the lines. The board was still rigged, but no one noticed. No one on staff, including Drew, the stage managers, or the crew. Prior to those 3 consecutive $10,000 declines, nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Almost no one can pull off that kind of streak. It was obvious to the producers that something was amiss. That's the reason the game was halted. Midway through the recording, the intervention of CBS standards and practices was much appreciated. The decision was made to allow the contestant to retain her $30,000 prize money. Both the legal crisis and the potential alienation of the show's viewers were averted by that decision. Once the fishing lines were removed, the entire thing was red-hot by the crew. Athletic event. Once again, the participant used all 5 chips to play Plinko. She pocketed $3,000 this time. Viewers didn't see any mayhem when the show aired on December 5, 2008. All of the mess had been cleared. You may see the red-hot version in the final cut. The near disaster went unnoticed by those watching at home. Years passed with the tale shrouded in secrecy. How Near the Price is Right came to a huge scandal was known only by those in that studio. The crew responded quickly and effectively, though, so the program was able to continue on. Later that year, in an interview with SiriusXM, Drew Carey discussed that day, predicting, "I'm going to jail. I'm losing my job. There's going to be a scandal." At the time, he had only been after succeeding Bob Barker in 2007 as host for a year. To him, it seemed like the show might be off the air. The quiz show scandals of the 1950s are the reason for the stringent regulations of game shows. In response to these incidents, the federal government outlawed game fixing in all its forms. Drew immediately realized that this error could lead to significant consequences. There were other scandals as well. One of the most reliable TV personalities for many years was Bob Barker. Over the course of 35 years, he became famous as host of The Price is Right. A completely other story was unfolding behind the scenes, though, while viewers witnessed the charisma and thrill unfold on TV. Scenes. The show's female employees started speaking out in the 90s. They spoke of a hostile work environment characterized by prejudice, intimidation, and harassment. Diane Parkinson, a model, sued Barker for $8 million in 1994. He allegedly coerced her into a sexual connection that persisted for a period of 3 years. According to Parkinson, Barker threatened to fire her if she disobeyed his demands. According to her, he requested oral sex after dragging her into his changing room in the middle of a performance. Barker had been in his 70s for quite some time. He insisted Parkinson was the one who had pursued him and denied everything. She aspired to follow in Mrs. Bob Barker's footsteps, he claimed. After facing mounting legal fees and health complications, Parkinson decided to discontinue the action. However, her story brought attention to a widespread, remained silent regarding for many years. Holly Holstrom was another model let go in 1995. Holstrom thought the real reason was because she didn't back Barker during the Parkinson case, even if the official explanation was medication-induced weight gain. The formal complaint she lodged against him was on July 2, 1996. He was charged with several counts of discrimination, including sex, age, medical, violation of contract, and emotional abuse, according to her accusations. For nearly a decade, the dispute dragged on in court. Barker's lawyers repeatedly sought to obstruct her by submitting motions. The payments were contingent upon her agreeing to certain terms, she claimed. Keep quiet. She was adamantly opposed. She opted to accept less pay in order to preserve her freedom to free speech. Holstrom was paid a settlement in the multi-million-dollar range in October 2005. Subsequently, she established a non-profit to aid victims of workplace violence who do not have enough resources to mount a defense. The situation involving Holstrom affected other characters on the show. After testifying in her defense, models Janice Pennington and Kathleen Bradley were both let go from their positions. The show had employed Pennington since 1972. After Bradley's 1990 arrival, he became a permanent black model for the first time. Linda Reigert and Cheryl Paris, who were also production assistants, were also let go. Additionally, they had advocated for Holstrom. Everyone understood. You would be expelled from the premises if you dared to oppose Barker. Sharon Friday, another employee, filed in her own legal case. She claimed that offensive conduct and sexual harassment on site led to her dismissal. Lanisha Cole, a model, also went to court in 2011. She included 7 distinct grievances in her case, including allegations of sexual harassment and false incarceration. She accused 2 show producers of being abusive to her. Years after the initial cases, the issues persisted, as demonstrated by Cole's case. It wasn't simply women who were poisoned by the show's culture. On top of that, it was biased. According to sworn testimony from Holstrom and others, the call papers for black contestants were designated with a B. After the majority of the white contenders had already been selected, they were brought out in the third act. According to Holstrom, Barker was against having too many black candidates on the show. She went on to say that he would playfully flee if they attempted to embrace him. However, the joke failed to amuse. For much too long, it has been tolerated as part of a routine. Despite Barker's retirement in 2006, a longtime employee continued to speak out in 2007. For 24 years, Deborah Curling was a contestant screener. Racism, sexual harassment, and psychological torture were the grounds for her claim. She finally snapped because of the show's culture. Behind the cheerful presenter and the vibrant set, the producers of The Price is Right were juggling a very different issue. Litigation revealed a trend of abuse and inaction. A few people were laid off. Many people's health declined. Some people spent decades battling legal wars they had no desire to fight. In 2007, Drew Carey became host of The Price is Right. He has a reputation for years as a welcoming and entertaining host. He joked with each competitor and kept smiling as the wheel spun. That reputation, however, began to crumble in 2025. Several credible sources made grave allegations on March 21st. They said Carey had fostered an unhealthy atmosphere at work. Workers of staff claim that he frequently screamed at crew workers while filming. On occasion, it occurred during taping. At other instances, it took place in secret. There were 7 people on board who were considering going to court. They claimed this pattern of conduct persisted for a number of months. A lot of tension was building up behind the scenes. The production crew noticed a change in Carey's demeanor around late. The year 2024. On certain days, he was lively and amiable. He could become withdrawn or furious out of the blue the following day. During filming in February 2025, he abruptly left the site. There were delays because of the 45-minute break. Participants had previously chosen, now awaiting action. Staff members began to communicate Carr's emotional state through nonverbal signs after that day. 3 long-term crew members departed in the beginning of 2025. They were unanimous in their assessment that the hostile work environment was to blame. And that includes everything started to feel odd with the show. The program that aired on December 12, 2024, was notable for all the wrong reasons. It was a huge hit on the internet. On Biders Row, there were 2 competitors who offered identical bids. Someone actually thought $10 was a genuine amount. One participant in Safe Crackers couldn't even follow the most basic requirements. Not once, but twice, Carey had to explain what they were. "Oh, I did. Where is it?" she said after winning a TV, as another contestant took no notice of the onlookers and shoved each block off the platform. It was unbelievable to everyone. In her pricing game, only Linda came out on top. That program aired for more than 2.3 million views in only 22 hours on YouTube. February 2025 followed. The show once had participants guess how much an iPhone 6 would cost. People started speculating about $7,500, paying $7.51 to the second visitor. In reality, it cost $1,969. Everyone in the audience let out a gasp. Carey glanced over the video and remarked, "I hope the marketing people at Apple are watching this." The crowd erupted in laughter, but online opinions were divided. Some found it humorous. Carey, according to some, crossed a line. They felt the host's mockery of the participants was inappropriate on national television. It only took 24 hours for that video to reach 300,000 views. On November 20, 2024, a less significant controversy occurred. Line 'Em Up was being played by a participant named Agnes. She won a car by arranging numbers. Following her initial assessment, Carrie said, "You have to change this to a 2 because the 4 is wrong." The audience then started yelling in response. Carrie informed her, "They want you to make this a 0. In response to her inquiry on its accuracy, he restated it. Agnes altered the situation and 1. Carrie was subsequently criticized by one admirer of being overly helpful. Even though CBS remained nothing on the matter, crew members claimed it was within the bounds of permissibility. Even though hosts shouldn't steer players in any one direction, there's no law against responding to audience members' comments. Viewers of The Price is Right deemed the show's October 23, 2024, showcase round to be among the worst in recent memory. The two remaining contestants, Luis and Anna, had reached the very end. When the curtain came up, though, the reality didn't live up to their expectations. Vacation packages to Ireland, Iceland, and New Orleans were on offer in the inaugural showcase. Those locations are great on their own, but regular watchers have realized something is incomplete. Not even a 5-star resort can be found here, not even a tropical paradise. Neither did the second showcase. Among its contents were a Mitsubishi Mirage, a stereo system, and a collection of diamond jewelry. Online viewers claimed that vehicle to be the show's most inexpensive ever featured vehicle. On camera, Anna appeared devastated. It wasn't limited to her alone. A social media frenzy ensued. Critics said that the show's creators had takes financial shortcuts in the run-up to the 10,000th episode of the show in February 2025. Some felt it was an insult to the game's history. It was merely referred to as lazy by others. The harm had already been done. Many were disappointed by the exhibition. That was simply one of several contentious issues that season. Longtime host Rich Fields blundered on another show. He mistakenly identified an HP laptop as a Dell while outlining the prize package. Safe, isn't it? Presented here. The cost is reasonable for a stringent regulation. If a contestant wins a reward that was misrepresented, they will receive the one that was announced. The show lost thousands of dollars due to just one slip of the tongue. And there was a twist to it. The competitor possessed bidder was over $5,000 off. They would have been disqualified under the standard rules. Nevertheless, the prize had to be given out due to the mistake. This was no accident. It revealed how meticulously the program runs. The word, the thing, and the price are all. There can be no room for error. A significant amount of money can be lost due to a single slip-up. The most surprising part, though, usually happens after the game. Even while the contestants are smiling as they leave the stage, reality sets in when they receive their tax letter. Regardless of taxed at full retail value are the show's prizes. The state taxes of California are the starting point. Prior to receiving any prize, the participant must pay the fee. Anxiety can set in at that very time. Back in 2013, a $157,300 Audi R8 Spider was won by Teacher Sure High. It was the most valuable prize ever given out by the program. Next, the invoice arrived. 3 states were due: California, $12,000, Washington, $14,915, and her own state, $34,453. About tax matters. Your tax bill will be more than $61,000. No cash alternative will be available to the contestants. Either you win or you don't. In the end, a lot of champions just quit. An event that altered the course of the show irrevocably occurred in 2008. Terry Nya, a former weatherman, put up a perfect $23,743 showcase bid. He punched the last $1 into the number. A 17-foot camper, a pool table, and a karaoke machine were the prizes. Everything stopped making hay when the grand total was announced. After 45 minutes, nobody budged. The producers were sure it was a cheat going on behind the scenes. Kathy Greco, one of them, bolted from the stage in shock. Even host Drew Carey wasn't very happy about it. He later confessed that he was angry and announced the victory with clenched teeth. But Nia was adamant that no trick existed. He had committed pricing trends to memory and found significance in numbers. His wedding day and the month in which his wife was born. He was exonerated by the show after a thorough investigation. Regardless, makers hoped that wouldn't occur again. From that point on, they would frequently introduce new things and alter prices to keep the participants on their toes. There has always been a finely tuned machine behind the scenes of The Price is Right, with its vibrant set and whirling wheels. However, regardless of even a minor glitch, like an inadequate set of prizes, an accidental word choice, an unexpected tax bill, or an ideal bid, can throw everything off. Plus, there will be millions of eyes on it when it happens.